going to say, not Fred. Greg and Claudio.
Yeah. Cool, we're live now.
Okay. So I think we're live. Is that right? My team at the back
yes,
there.
right, yeah. Got no one with us yet.
No one with us yet. Okay, let us know when there's a few people gathered then. It's Good Friday, of course. Did you know that?
Yeah, I used to be Catholic.
Oh, okay, so you do know that.
Stop and start, it's just saying it's private on there. How do you change it? Yeah, there you go.
Are we live or was it not live?
Yeah, it was live, it's just it was in private setting, but it should be. Yeah, okay, it's got a notification, so yeah.
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 So we're on?
We are, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Easter weekend.
So?
Easter weekend.
It's Easter weekend, it's Good Friday.
Yeah.
So public holiday today, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and Monday.
And Monday.
Easter
And
Monday.
Sunday, of course. Yeah.
And
Sunday is
Sunday.
the special day.
Yeah.
For many people around the world.
Got 7 people
Okay,
with us
so
far.
welcome to you if you've gathered. We're just getting ready. My name is Surya Gupta, and lovely to see you, be with you this evening. We're just saying it's a public holiday, and I've got with me today Greg, who's got his earphones on behind the scenes, and Claudio as well. So great to have a team here with me today. Do all the technical things. So let me know if you're where you're from, name and where you're from. That'd be great to know who's with me this evening. It's the end of the week. Good to mark the end of a week, even though it's a bit more challenging doing that these days. But yeah, let me know that you're with me and also where you're from. Be good to hear from you before we start. Fantastic.
Okay. We're just trying to. So it's currently saying that the comments aren't allowed, so we're just trying to figure out how to let the comments allowed.
Oh, okay. So we're just trying to figure 1 or 2 things out so that you can actually comment. It seems at the moment there's a little glitch on the comments. You can, if you like, begin to just arrive. So that means relaxing, getting into your body, taking a few breaths together.
Cool, so we've got 29 people with us.
Okay. And can people comment?
No,
Yet? Not quite yet. All right. Well, whilst they're figuring out the comments, I'm just going to welcome you again. My name is Surya Gupta. Lovely to have you with me. And tonight's Friday night. It's Friday night. It's a public holiday. And we're going to spend a little bit of time before we start just arriving. We're just in a few moments connecting to our breaths. And wherever you're standing, lying, getting a sense of your whole body, and allowing your body to feel supported by the ground. Right now you're held up by the ground. And just Take a few deeper breaths. So breathing in, and with the out breath, really feeling that any tension is dissolving away. Any pressure from the day is being released as you breathe out. So you're breathing in, relaxation, and breathing out, letting go of anything that you need to right now in order to be present. Great.
Yeah, I think I'm get going. We'll try and get the comments working.
Okay, all right.
Throughout it. But yeah, I think we'll get going.
Okay, thank you. So yes, welcome if you've just joined. My name's Suri Gupta, and I'm going to be here actually most Friday nights at the Buddhist Centre, probably. It's such a lovely space, lovely shrine. We were commenting on how beautiful the flowers were. It really looks like spring behind me. So I'm going to be here most Friday nights and connecting with you. And Friday night feels like a time to really unwind from the week, to let go of all the things that might have been challenging, pressurizing this week for us, and tune in to the fact that we might have some space this weekend, hopefully. If not, just spend some time tuning into ourselves. So today I'm going to speak a little bit about meditation. I'm going to speak a little bit about working with the mind, and then we'll have a meditation. And then you've got a chance, if our comments come on board, you've got a chance to ask questions. I particularly this evening do think about any questions you have relating to meditation, relating to working with your current situation, and using meditation as a real help for that. Okay, so I was thinking today that it's our third week in London. It's our third week in lockdown, as they call it. Third week where we've got these various restrictions. So we're going into our fourth week from Monday. And I don't know what it's been like for you. Certainly when I'm meditating in the morning, I'm very aware, I just bring, lots of people come to mind when I'm meditating. And I'm aware of such different kind of situations and circumstances that friends of mine, family are in, just people I'm very tuned into and aware of through conversations I'm having. I know some of you may be really enjoying the space that we're having in a certain way, in that things are slowed down. Maybe life was very busy before this period and things are slowing down. You're discovering a new way of being. I know some of you have the opposite experience, and life has sped up and become incredibly busy. Some of you are on the front line. I've been speaking to one or two people in that situation, and very challenging situations there. Some of you are just finding it not having as much to do and feeling very challenged by that. Feeling quite bored or not knowing how to use your time very well. So really, there's so many different responses and situations that we're in. I find it fascinating because we're all affected by COVID-19. We're all, that's one of the popular phrases now is we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat, but actually very different situations and circumstances, actually. So, I'm very conscious of that when I sit to meditate each morning. One of the things I was thinking about was how you can have two people in a similar situation and yet two might respond very differently to it. So I've always been fascinated by that, actually. I grew up with my three sisters, as four of us, and we would have seem to be the similar event in our lives, and we'd all interpret it quite differently. And sometimes that's to do with just our temperament, our particular personality. Some would say even genes, certainly conditioning and upbringing. From a Buddhist point of view, in a way, regardless of your upbringing, regardless of your temperament in a sense, regardless of your past, we can learn to train our minds to respond positively, creatively, constructively to whatever conditions we're in. And in a way, the whole Buddhist path is helping us to do that. So I remember when I sort of came along to meditate, I had two motivations. One, a very deep one, which was to learn to live without regret. I really wanted to, when my point of death came, that I could somehow die without regret. That was a really strong motivation. And I knew that meant that I somehow would have to learn to do whatever was going on in my life well, whenever it occurred. And I didn't know exactly how to do that. That was one motivation for practice. The other one was that I didn't really want any challenges. I wanted to get rid of all challenges. I wanted to have a life that was easy, peaceful, where everything sort of worked out, everything was lovely and just worked out. So that was a big motivation for me. And certainly when I started meditating, I definitely found myself to be, life was calmer for sure. When I started meditating consistently, that is, and getting to know other Buddhists and practicing, life was definitely more calmer. I definitely felt more positive. So for me, it was like, oh gosh, this really works. I put it all into practice, and I was really seeing the effects, which was fantastic. And then I know that there's a big part of me that then thought, great, I've just got to keep doing this, and then one day all my challenges, all my difficulties will just dissolve like a magic wand, going, there you go, life is now easy. I don't know if I had that consciously, but I certainly was expecting it, and I was waiting for when it happened. And I don't want to disappoint anyone, but I've been meditating now for a while, for a number of years, and I would say I definitely still have challenges. Challenges haven't disappeared. In fact, I would say that the more I grow spiritually, the challenges, I would say, seem to become bigger along with my growth. So that's interesting. But what I would say that's definitely happened, and I feel really grateful for this, is that my ability to deal with challenges, my ability to respond to what's happening in my life or around me or with other people, my ability to do that, particularly when it's challenging, I'm able to do that much more positively, much more constructively, much more helpfully than I did in the past. And that I'm really grateful for. And that I think is really, what I'm understanding, the Buddhist path much more, that it's not about getting rid of difficulties. It's much more about how you respond to them. So that actually, at some point, you don't experience them in the same way as difficulties. You experience them as just life unfolding, events happening. Sometimes they can be painful, but we have the capacity to respond positively and constructively to them. And I'm very grateful that I've been learning that more and more as time's gone on. I think I would say meditations helped me with that, of course, and I'll speak a bit more about how in a moment. Ethics were important as well. Learning to how through my actions I could reduce my own suffering and the suffering that I cause with people around me. And of course, reflecting on the teachings, the Buddhist teachings, the wisdom teachings, that really help broaden my perspective on the life and me, myself, others, and life itself. My teacher speaks about two different ways the mind operates. And I found this particularly helpful in meditation. So I'm going to come into meditation a bit now about how we can really respond constructively to whatever the situation we are in. So my teacher talks about two different ways the mind operates, and he talks about the creative mind and the reactive mind. So I'm going to talk about that. So the reactive mind really is a mind that responds to stimuli automatically. So it's a bit like, you see I don't know, an ice cream or something, and you want it. There's an instant sort of response, automatic response, or like in the doctor's surgery when the doctor taps your knee and you get this reflex, that sort of reaction. The reactive mind is a mind that just responds automatically to whatever stimuli is there. So if the stimuli is one that's desirable, then the reactive mind wants it. If the stimuli is one that's negative, the reactive mind wants to push it away or always feels threatened by it. So that there's a reactive mind because it comes from a negative emotion. The core emotions being greed, hatred and ignorance. That's the sort of wellspring, if you like, of the reactive mind. And it has a stimulus that it just automatically responds to. The reactive mind is also repetitive. So if you find yourself, when you think, gosh, here I am again, how did I get here? It doesn't feel good. I've just had an argument, say, with somebody, here I am again, similar argument to what I normally have, or similar reaction, and you don't necessarily know how to get out of it either. You just find yourself there. That's a reactive mind too, a sort of repetitive mind that circles and circles round various things, a bit like the dog. I remember getting into a sort of a very classic reactive experience with my son. He was studying for I think A-level, so he was at home for a while, and I'd sort of say to him in the day, I'd say, hey, when have a good day, and when I was going to work, that is, have a good day, and remember to wash up, when your things. And he'd be like, yeah, no, mum, no problem. And I'd come back and then open the front door, and I could see my kitchen from my front door, and there all the dishes were. And I would notice my reaction, having a reaction to this. And then I would think, work with this a bit. Let me think of a constructive way to work with this. So I said so what I would do is ring him on my way back from home, and I'd say to him, oh, remember to wash up. I'm coming home soon. Remember to wash up. And he'd say, yeah, don't worry, it'll be done. And I'd come home again, and there they were. And this thing went on again and again. And I found it fascinating that even though consciously I sort of thought, it's not a big deal, it's not a massive deal. I can, the dishes will get done. My reaction was very instant on seeing the dishes there. And we really had to, both of us, because he had his own reactions, of course, both of us had to really sort of unpack what was happening. And actually, it produced quite a very insightful experience for me when I began to sort of unpack it. The main thing I want to say around that story is that a little thing like somebody leaving the dishes can set off quite a strong reaction. So we do know the reactive mind. We know the reactive mind because it's repetitive, because it's not logical, actually, a lot of the time. And it's unconscious. It's unaware as to why it's responding in a certain way. So that's the reactive mind. And then we have the creative mind. So the creative mind, in a way, is opposite of that. The creative mind comes from, well, firstly, it doesn't need always an external stimuli. The creative mind can come from the depth of the mind itself. So it can spring from the mind being fulfilled and engaged and integrated. It springs from, clarity, calm, spaciousness, love. In a way, this wellspring of the creative mind is positive emotion. Whatever's positive in your experience expresses itself, as a creative mind. And from the Buddhist point of view, our mind, our sort of true nature of our mind, our intrinsic nature of our mind is deeply creative. Creative in the sense that it's deeply positive, it's clear, it's luminous, spacious, loving, and wants to respond, wants to give. That's our true nature of our mind. But we don't experience that all the time because it's laid over, if you like, with conditioning and with negative emotions. In a way, what meditation's helping us to do is to at least understand the reactive mind and train ourselves so that we can begin to work with it much more helpfully and allow the creative mind to emerge, allow the creative mind to express itself, because it's there wanting to express itself. I found it really interesting with the collective response to COVID, and seeing the reactions, the collective reactions that we've been having. So, panic buying a couple of weeks ago was fascinating, because they were showing on the news all these empty shelves and saying, don't panic buy. And actually the response was, certainly I felt it too. I was like, gosh, there's nothing on the shelves. Should I be buying? Should I be buying things? It sort of had the opposite effect, it seems, as to what was asked for. Logically, I think most people knew that it was not helpful to kind of go out and panic buy. And yet the fear was there, and the kind of sense of, well, I might be threatened, if I don't have enough food in my house, I might be threatened. So it triggered that sort of stimulus, if you like, of the empty shelves and the queues. It sort of triggered a reactive, automatic response in many people to want to go out and buy. That's the sort of collectivity there. But then I've also seen an explosion of creativity as well. That's been wonderful, seeing how, many people, or just different ways that people have tried to support others. So we have the kind of weekly clapping of the care workers and the frontline workers. We've had people singing, lots of different ways people are helping each other with food, accommodation, really sort of thinking, how can I respond to help people at this point? We've also had, with many people not being able to work, do their normal jobs, we've also had like this explosion of online creativity as well, and social media. So I heard today there was a Russian dance company who, they were all in their various houses, they wanted to put on the performance, so they're putting on this performance in their various different locations of the show. I mean, how creative is that? Masseurs online showing people how to do, massages for themselves to help them relax. Loads of cooking demonstrations and people sharing their various efforts there. International choirs being formed with people, whether you can sing or not, doesn't matter, you just join in. We had here on Sunday, we had a public ordination ceremony, whereby, several communities that live around here, witnessed somebody committing themselves to the Buddhist path, and following all the social distancing rules. And it was absolutely fantastic. So it's been really wonderful seeing the creativity that's there, that really just wants to respond. I think that really shows what we can be as a human sort of race, if you like. For me, we have these choices. We have the reactive mind that's with us a lot, that we're probably quite familiar with. And then we have the choice and the possibility of responding positively, helpfully, constructively to whatever situation we happen to find ourselves in. So how does meditation help us do that? Well, in a way, we're going to do the mindfulness of breathing in a short moment. And what you're doing with the mindfulness of breathing, you're basically getting to know your mind. That's the first thing. You're getting to know how your mind works, how our mind, the mind, works. And what we find when we do that practice, often at the beginning stages, and as we go through as well, is that our mind there's a stimulus that comes in and our mind goes off, yes? That's the first thing people say, I can't keep my mind, sort of concentrated. And I found that a lot of this period of time as well, people saying, I'm finding it hard to settle, because there's a lot of stimulus in a sense. Even though we're at home, there's a lot we're trying to process. So with the mindfulness of breathing, whenever you notice the mind going off, great in the sense that you now know, you've become aware. As soon as you notice the mind has drifted off, you've become distracted, it's following a story, you're sitting there trying to meditate, next thing you're thinking about dinner, next thing you're thinking about who's going to do the washing up, next thing you're rehearsing an argument, suddenly you're in a story somewhere. If you notice that, great, because what you've done there, you've sort of you've stopped yourself from just getting lost, yeah, and getting carried away by that various set of stimuli. And you've also recognizing the opportunity to bring yourself back, the fact that there's a choice to bring yourself back at that point. So that's what we're wanting to do, bring ourselves back to the present, and then bring ourselves back to the possibility of the creative mind. The creative mind's waiting there to emerge, to express itself. And the more we bring ourselves back to the present moment, the more the creative mind can just emerge. If you're experiencing strong emotions, I know that there's a lot of strong emotions going on at this point, and you're doing the mindfulness of breathing practice, and what emerges is a strong emotion that's maybe attached to a story or an event. Again, what we want to do is come back this time to the body, come back to the body, see if you can just learn to be with the emotion as it is. So again, we're working against that fight-flight tendency, where there's strong emotion, the fight-flight tendency wants to push it away, yeah, or it wants to push it away, ignore it, or fight it in some way. So if you learn to just be with it, that's what we're going to practice in a moment. Just learn to be with it, so that you can become familiar with what it's doing in the body, and then breathe into it, and also, give yourself some kindness around it as well. It's okay. It's okay to have emotion if there's been difficult events going on. What we want with more practice, what happens is we begin to have the sense of our mind like the sky, and then those strong emotions are like these clouds that are there. But we can allow them to be there in a space of awareness, in a space of kindness, and then gradually what happens is the cloud, if you like, begins to move, sometimes begins to dissipate, begins to feel like it's got less of a hold on us as we're responding to it with kindness as well. Okay, so we've got more time at the end, but let's have a short meditation now with the mindfulness of breathing practice.
We haven't managed to make the live chat work, so if people have questions, if they could put it in the comments bit at the bottom rather than the live chat section.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard that, but Greg said the live chat for whatever reason isn't working, but there's a comment box underneath this, so please put your questions from what I've said, from share your own practice, how's it going, any questions around that I can help you with your meditation practice. Put them in the comment box and we'll come to them at the end of our meditation. Okay, great. Should we just close that? So we're going to dim the lights and get yourselves comfortable. Okay, thank you. So practicing, we're going to do a very short period of the mindfulness, a couple of the stages. So I invite you to close your eyes and practicing coming back to the body, coming back to the breath in the body as it moves the body subtly. And notice each time you bring your mind, you notice your mind drifting off or getting caught in a narrative. Each time you notice that, there's an opportunity there. An opportunity to come back to the present moment and allow a positive, helpful response to however you are, to whatever's going on. So bringing yourself back and really connecting to your body, noticing any tensions, allowing those to dissolve, to relax, to soften. bringing kindness into your experience. A friendly, open response to yourself. As you get to know your mind, as you learn to develop a sense of space and openness to your experience. As you begin to have the body and the breath as an anchor, as a steadying force. Mindfulness of breathing. First stage, just counting at the end of the out-breath from 1 to 10. If you get distracted, coming back to 1. Keep coming back to the body. Noticing, recognizing what's happening in your experience, bringing awareness in, come back to the body, loosen any tightness. Each time you do that, you're also allowing a more helpful, positive response in your experience. And you can come back to the breath. Moving to the second stage of the mindfulness of breathing, you're counting before the in-breath. Can you notice the narratives and stories, repetitive patterns, thought? Can you notice it? Still respond to yourself with openness and friendliness, with empathy. And choose to come back to the present moment. Choose to come back to the experience of now. And the steadiness of your breath. And then in this third stage and final stage, we'll just experience the breath as it's coming and going, like the waves of a tide, being nourished by the experience of breathing. Continually coming back to the breath, to the body and the breath. Body being a stable base for you. The breath being your anchor. And allowing whatever creative response there is to emerge in the space between distractions. And last moments of the practice, I'm going to invite you just to appreciate your efforts in this moment, your efforts to be aware, to practice, to know the mind, to know yourself, to know others. Really acknowledging your efforts. Appreciating your efforts through the week. The moments of awareness, of recognition. The moments where you chose to be present, to be connected, chose to be creative. Really acknowledging those. And we can wish all ourselves well for the next few days. And we should really wish all beings well, all those working for our benefit, wishing them well, wishing that in whatever way we are contributing appreciating that. And knowing that by trying to practice and evolve and grow and be aware, we're also contributing to the well-being of others and ourselves. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So thank you for sharing in practice with me. Yes, talking about the creative mind, the reactive mind, I'm sort of curious as to how that was for you, meditating just now. So do use the chat to the comment section to ask any questions around your practice, how that's going. I'm here to sort of help with any, with how your meditation is. I think one of the things is that want to recognise that that things can be quite challenging at the moment. So in a way, and part of that is a lot of fluctuating emotions. So sometimes I'm talking to people and they're fine one moment, and then suddenly they're not. So part of the experience, it seems to be, is a lot of change. Whilst there's a lot of external change, that's reflecting for us internally as well. So really the importance there of trying to be empathic, have empathy with oneself and others is really key at the moment. So I'm just going to ask if there's any comments so far in the or chat.
So we don't have anything in the comments so far. Maybe we're having a problem with that as well.
Oh, okay.
So maybe we could ask you a couple of questions.
Okay,
and
all right.
just talk around that.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe if you could talk about when you get caught in the reactive mind, sometimes it takes quite a while to realise you're caught in it, and then you're quite far along.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could talk about what are the telltale signs you're in the reactive mind, and what can you do to try and shift that into the more positive.
So that's really good, Greg. So Greg's kind of saying actually sometimes it just takes a while to notice it, and you're already quite far gone. So there is a process of recognition. And in a way, what we want to do in meditation is to reduce that process, if you like, so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller as time goes on. So at the beginning stage, you might be very far gone before you've realised anything even that's difficult, and then you have to spend quite a bit of time working yourself back to go, hey, what was that original stimuli? What actually was the thing that triggered or activated you in the first place? Yeah. So in meditation, what we're doing, in a way, what often happens with those narratives is that we beginning to notice the points of reaction, the moments where we go, that's what I did then, and that's what I did after that. And what you want, somebody described it a bit like they had a series of dominoes actually on the table, standing up. And in a way, when there isn't as much awareness there, you hit one domino and the rest fall over. And there's quite a lot of dominoes in that chain, So it takes you a while to realise, there was this, then there was this, then there was this, and there was this. With training, each domino, there's a bit more space between the dominoes. So one will hit, the other one might fall, but then the others are standing there. Does that make sense? So that actually there's gaps between it. So we want in the meditation to just every time you bring your mind back, you're creating a gap. You're creating a gap, a space between one reactive thought or action to another. So that's why it takes time. So I would say, Greg, that particularly if a very strong pattern is there, it will take time to undo that chain of reaction. But every time you have an insight, every time you bring yourself back, it helps with identifying a particular point in that chain.
Yeah, I'll ask a question. So, just talking about working creatively in the context of, you know, now, April 2020 with the situation, and being sort of far away from loved ones. I'm not asking as so much as the logistics of it, you know, how can we be creative, like, you know, have more Zoom meetings, or interact differently. More what I'm asking is, I guess what I'm asking is, how does it look in terms of how can I change my whole being and not just have the logistical changes that make it seem like a creative mind's being at work.
So in a way, being away from loved ones at the moment is one of the challenges, isn't it? Not being able to see people, and your question is, it's not just about practically, oh well, I can, you know, see them on FaceTime or whatever, and that's going to help. How can you become, is it more accepting of that, or find a way to respond to the situation as it is, more openly, more positively?
Yeah. With my whole self. With
your whole self, yeah. So again, I mean, none of these things are overnight things, of course. But in a way, the thing about not being with loved ones, there is a sense of loss. There can be a sense of loss. You missing people. And the first thing we need to do is to just be aware of what's actually, what our feelings are. You know, because often, you know, we want to see the loved ones, and you know, and that becomes the focus, of course. But actually, what's happening in our experience? So if we begin to recognise, oh, there's loss here, or I'm missing them, or some grief even, that's a starting point of our practice. So we always say to start where you are. So before running to a solution, what's actually happening in our experience? And if you can think, oh, there is some loss here, then in a way it's working with that, learning to be with that, learning to understand that. How is that affecting you? How is that affecting your body? What is it making you do? What is the kind of thoughts it's making you have? And then from there, beginning to bring some empathy into your experience. You know, so you're responding to that loss kindly, or you're responding to missing somebody with understanding, rather than thinking, oh, well, you shouldn't be feeling that, or you just want to see them, so you'll find a fix for it. Because sometimes when we go for the fix, the solution, it doesn't always produce the thing that we want, because actually we're still with the emotion, and we haven't done anything with that. Yeah. So start where you are. Try and recognise the experience you're having. Recognise the thoughts that are going on. Recognise the feelings. How is it playing out in your body? Even bringing some kindness and empathy to that, or some understanding or insight around that, and then from there, you know, you're going to be in a different place around, you know, thinking about your loved ones. Certainly for me, I've been practicing exactly that same thing. You know, I've not been able to see my mum. She's much old, you know, she's, you know, vulnerable, in that vulnerable category. I've not been able to see her for the last few weeks. So I'm allowing in the sadness around that. I'm allowing that in. I'm not getting lost in it, because I'm just recognising it's there. And I'm also recognising it's not the whole of my experience, you know, because there can be sadness for not seeing my mum, but there's also joy that I'm able to interact with the people that I can interact with. There's joy in other aspects of my life, so it's not the whole of my experience. And I also recognise that sadness of not seeing her comes from love. It comes from a positive thing, and it comes from a positive relationship. So I'm also appreciating the fact that I have that. So it's a bit like, you know, that blue sky that I was talking about, the mind being like the sky. The sadness is a particular cloud, if you like, that's there, but it sits within a sort of really positive sense of appreciation for the relationship I have, for the fact there's other positive things in my life, and the fact that I can be with the experience, you know, without needing to push it away or get overwhelmed by it. Yeah.
That sounds wholly positive.
Mm.
And I guess one can be mistaken to think that that's great for ourselves, but I guess what you're saying as well is that that's actually good for not just yourself, for example, but for your relationship with the mother.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about her. She's in my practice a lot, so I'm, cultivating metta. I'm wishing her well, and I'm also recognizing that, there's many people in that situation. So it's not unique to me. It's not personal to me. It's part of the human experience. And then in a way, you have the opportunity for your heart to grow even bigger, in a sense, because you're not only concerned. You're very aware of what the feeling of missing somebody is, because you've allowed it in, and then you're opening up to, oh gosh, there's so many other people in this situation as well, and then you're feeling with them much more deeply. So when people are, talking to me about their loss, I'm feeling with them very, very deeply. So there's a connection there, and a broadening out of one's own, situation to a kind of much more universal experience. And that feels, although there's a feeling of, we're talking about loss and sadness, it also feels very connecting. It feels like one can be in solidarity with other people, and alongside and care for others as well as for oneself.
I think one of the times when I feel most reactive is when reading the news, but it feels important to at least keep up with what's going on. So is there a way we can respond creatively with reading the news?
Yeah, so I do suggest to limit the news, because, like, in a way, the news is I often see this the collective reactivity and the collective creativity plays out everywhere, and it will play out in the news as well. So you'll see a lot of speculation, a lot of anxiety in the news, obviously fear, and there'll be really thoughtful responses as well, considered analysis as well. Both of those things are there in the news. But I would suggest, if you want to be present to your experience, is to limit the news, as in give yourself, a time where you're going to take in the information so you can be up to date with what's going on, and that you might find one or two channels or, sort of art, people that you think, oh yeah, I like the way they write, so you can really consider what's happening. But then as you're even with that, even if you are limiting the amount of news, so I try and go once or twice a day, I go on the news, and I really then do take it in. But even with that, there'll be all kinds of stories, and some of them will cause, there'll be negative stories. Some of them will cause some kind of reaction in your experience. Again, the same thing is noticing that that's happening. The noticing is such a key part of the practice. Because the quicker we notice it, going back to what you said earlier, the quicker we notice it, the quicker we can choose whether to go down that chain of reaction. So noticing that there is a reaction happening, and then recognizing that it's a reaction. It's okay. You don't have to follow it. We don't have to act or allow it to grow in our minds. That's the key thing. I used to think being a Buddhist somehow you'd like, or the Buddha, or being spiritually advanced would mean that you wouldn't have feelings, sort of pain. And I realised that's another wrong idea. It's much more that you can have a painful response to something, but you're not acting out on it. You don't. That's the key thing. And certainly in reading the news, noticing the reaction will help you make a conscious choice as to whether on that day you feel really able to take that news in and can carry on reading it, or whether actually you need to come back to your own experience and direct your energy elsewhere. Because sometimes a reaction set up without us even really knowing, and then we finish watching the news and then we get into something negative with somebody else, not realizing that actually we were triggered by or activated by the news. So coming back to your own experience, giving yourself a choice to do that. noticing what's happening. And if you can gain insight as to why am I reacting in this way? What's going on here? Am I feeling threatened by this? Is it because what I'm reading is, unhelpful? Just giving yourself that space to take that in. But if you don't feel able to do that, then redirect your energy at that point. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys for asking excellent questions. Thank you. So we're coming up to time. Sorry you weren't able to comment in the chat box or the live sections today for some reason. We'll work that out. So next time I'm here, next Friday, all going well, you'll be able to comment and ask me questions. So please do, it's been lovely being here with you anyway, please do, we've got a donate button. If we practice a culture here of generosity, I share freely, encourage you to share as well, if you're in that position to be able to, by going to the donate. Also sign up for our newsletter if you're not on our online newsletter. And I'm going to be teaching meditations in the mornings next week. So if you're on our newsletter, you'll get information about that as well. So lovely to be with you. Thank you very much for joining me. And I'll see you again next Friday. And take care and go well. Thank you.